Yeah, I'm sorry this took so long. When I made the grenade video, the basics was about 4 hours long, and I wish I was joking here. So I ended up scrapping that and moving on. Today I'm just going to sum up most of the important bits and some of my tips that I use every day for myself. So to get started, one thing I do constantly as a gunner is use my grenades at the same time as the shield. Not all the time, of course, but it's a great way to push enemies together where any of these grenades can do more damage. And it also shields your teammates. I usually throw the grenade first and then the shield. And somebody will usually take friendly fire, and honestly I'm doing my best here by putting up the shield. If you're standing outside of it, there's not much more I can do, which is often the way a lot of friendly fire works. You throw a grenade and suddenly a teammate charges into the same area. Neither person is wrong here, just bad timing. So, throwing a shield down right at the same time you're going to grenade is a nice way to protect the team from friendly fire while also bunching up enemies for the grenade. It's also a nice way to manage your ammo. As mentioned in my Gunner Masterclass, if you have ammo down or will soon have ammo down, use a couple grenades and a couple shields between then and now so you'll be back at 100% when you ammo up. Another trick I do as gunner is super throw my grenades, especially this one. It doesn't go very far and often it doesn't end up where I intend it to, which causes unnecessary friendly fire. So when I see a group of enemies headed this way, I dash and jump. I throw the grenade when I'm in the air, and this transfers the momentum into the grenade, which will go way further. This is very useful for throwables that don't go far like the lure or the driller's satchel charge.
Why are you running? Why are you...
Cluster grenades cover a large area, and enemies are usually in a line and not spread out like the grenade's radius. So throwing it in a tunnel is useful as the enemies are already bunched up. And if you use the shield technique, it will bunch them up even more. I'll come back to the sticky nade later. One of the troubles I have playing Deep Rock is that I'm usually playing after a long day, I'm tired, I'm not really remembering to even use everything I have. As driller, these throwing axes get rid of vines permanently, for free. You just pick the axe back up. Same as these spores, but only if you remember to do it. So, don't be like me. Driller can charge his grenade now, which is great. But honestly, why are so many people hating on the Ripper? People say it's too situational because it's only good in tunnels. I say, have you played Deep Rock at all? There are tunnels everywhere. You can also just throw it in a straight line. Either way, it doesn't have to be for everybody. I'm just doing fine with it. Could use a little friendly fire adjustment, but then again, Driller truly is the friendly fire king, and should remain so. It just makes sense. Satchel, meet the saw blade. Saw blade, meet satchel. May you slay many teammates together. The Engineer's Plasma Burster is very adaptable. Because it bounces, you can direct the explosion where the enemy is. Even if it's on the ceiling, you can bounce it off the wall. One easy way to be effective with it is when you're line kiting enemies, if you're on flat ground, the grenade will bounce in a straight line, wiping them out. But if the ground is uneven, it may bounce back at you. This is definitely a grenade worth practicing with. I had a ridiculous amount of footage using this thing as it was my second main in Deep Rock forever ago. It allowed me to take more single target builds with less ammo because I could take out groups with one grenade alone. A little bit more on that later. The proximity mine was my first main, on a completely defensive build, custom made for drill dozer missions, bunkers, and dreadnoughts with arc turrets and spitting death. My recommendation for this grenade is to look for the path that the enemies are spawning in, and then lay it in their path. And try to place your mines on ceilings or walls to avoid friendly fire. Proximity mines are a meta grenade in my opinion, since you can place a ton of them at once. That means you can place 20 mines in one spot, which combined with arc turrets is great for dreadnoughts. And it has a lot of other efficient uses as well. As with other grenades, the grenade is used up once you throw it. You can't throw multiple shredders, for example, or any more than 6 plasmas or 4 lures, as where the proximity mines can be placed constantly and last until they get triggered. This might sound like I'm making a bigger deal of it than you think. So, Naturally, I feel obligated to show that with the proper nitro amounts, this simple thing can make Hazard 5 much easier. There are a few little ammo rules and some nitro gain strategies that I need to talk about, but I'll do that in another video. So for the example, I'm using a black box mission, and I joined a random Haz 5 mission to demonstrate. But instead of my normal short length edits, I'm going to show about 5 minutes of the actual gameplay video, and here's why. I find with my style of editing, some comments tend to suggest I'm making up a theory or it doesn't actually work the way I say it does. And in reality, 90% of the video clips within a video are actual gameplay clips, proving the very thing I am describing, doing the very thing I'm talking about in my videos. Because this gets lost in translation for some, I'm going to be doing more long formatted gameplay clips so you can see the step by step rather than a fancy slow motion edit that's 30 seconds long. So here's the gameplay clip. Hopefully we can get a Haz 5. Oh, this right here is exactly what I need. This mission. 18 minutes. Haz 5. It's medium. I know Max. Max is a good lad. Shout out to Max. Let's get a little proximity mine tutorial here. Say hi. To YouTube. Never mind. I'm not going to type that. Alright, so with proximity mines, don't throw them on the ground. Please stop throwing them on the ground. The friendly fire is brutal. What you want to do is you want to find where the enemies are trailing from. So right now we have enemies coming from back here and enemies coming from, I think, over there. And looks like they're coming, and they always usually like trickle down here, so I throw them up there, but let's see where else. So see how they're coming from that direction? So what I do is I just throw the proximity mines over there, cover this area, and then what I would do, because we have so much ammo, is I would grab more ammo and start covering more areas. Like I said, try to get them up higher. Nice. I got one spot up here. So basically, my whole point in the gunner video about ammo is that the more ammo we have, the more of these things I can just start throwing up there, right? Like, this isn't a deep dive. We don't have to hoard all the ammo. I'm going to take 2, and I'm going to call more, and I'm just going to keep throwing down more of these things. There we go. Easy peasy. I didn't even reload my turrets. A great place for me to put these are up here, where they're away from everybody. Now, of course, I don't know where the bugs are coming from. If you don't have a bunch of ammo like this, it's better to just wait, like I said, see where the enemies are trailing from, and then throw them down.
Sticky grenade! Leave no thought behind. Stick around. Kill or be killed. Reloading. Rock and stone in the heart. Sticky boo.
I mean, this is easy. Like, we've got another ammo down somewhere. Oh, right here. Alright, throw some more grenades. Kill this tri-jaw.
Lock and load it. Getting supplies.
This is how you use up your ammo to make the missions easier. Alright. Now, of course, this is just one example with the proximity mines. If you had 2 gunners, you could do the same thing with bubble shields and their grenades, and you could just trade off on bubble shields, so you would be shielded for the entire black box fight. It all comes back to having lots of nitra, clearing rooms efficiently and quickly so you have even more nitra because you're not fighting as many swarms as when you move slower, and not assuming that you know everybody else's builds. So you go, oh, we don't need that extra nitra. Well, you don't know the build I'm using. I actually use builds that rip through ammo because they're really efficient, they're really fun to use, and there's enough ammo in the caves to use them. Let's use a different example here, okay? Let's say instead of the proximity mine, we use lures and the Fat Boy Nuke. So instead of all those proximity mines, I'm throwing a lure to the left, a lure to the right, and I'm nuking to the left and I'm nuking to the right. And you saw how much ammo I had. I could keep that going for the entire time. So it really is quite simple as long as you're getting all of the nitra in the caves. There's slightly more to it than that, but like I said, I'll be going into that in a whole other dedicated video. And it works with so many different variations as well. For this one specifically, I'm not going to go into the details now because I'm going to do it actually later in the video. But the whole point of it is that I change mods on everything else I have based on this lure and nuke combo. Of course, it's through testing and experience, and it took some time. It wasn't quick, but at the end of the day, for me, it's never just been about a grenade. So singling out any particular item, even if it's just a weapon, is definitely not how I make my builds in Deep Rock. If anything, when I started focusing more on stun and what kept me alive longer to get objectives done, that's when I really started to excel in this game. Again, all I can do is use more examples of the types of decisions I make when I choose certain grenades. So we're actually going to skip the Shredder grenade because it's just good. Like, you just throw it, it works really well. Maybe don't throw 2, because if you throw the second one, the first group of shredders will die. I throw it at the ground to activate it quicker. That's about all I got to say on those guys. So moving on, let's just jump into a scout example here. So the Pheromone Grenade. Let's use an example of how that can alter your actual build here. I was using the aggressive venting overclock for the plasma rifle. I don't recall the exact build mods I had, so I'll put something up on the screen. I'm kind of guessing on this one, but essentially all you really need to know is you need the mod for hitting reload will force it to vent. And this can be done different ways. You could use a pheromone bolt. There's lots of different ways you could do this. I'm just showing an example here. So essentially, to keep it short, I'm just bunching up enemies with the grenade and using the reload on the aggressive venting overclock to burn enemies. I think they run away to it, fears them, to get some AoE there. Anyway, that's just one example. There are so many different examples and variations of the very same build that I'm using. You can bring other grenades and other bolts instead. Another example here, we'll use the Boomerang, which will stun enemies. And if you combine that with the overclock, deals significantly more damage to targets that are burning, stunned, electrocuted, frozen, poisoned, etc. And then you add the plasma bolt. I think that's what it's called. It's the electricity bolt on the Bolt Shark crossbow there. And now you have an electricity build, right? Things are going to be electrified. You're going to do more damage to it because they're electrified. Like I said, I use just about everything in this game, and they all work very well. So you could even do the same thing and change the mod to the fire bolts instead and keep that same boomerang. So now you're adding maybe fire into the mix, or I don't know, there's like a million other ways you could do it, right? I don't really think it's one way or the other. I just try to suggest to find some sort of cohesiveness between your entire build. It's never been about just a grenade for me or just a gun for me. It's about the entire picture here and what one can do for another, whether that's a perk, a grenade, or your weapon. Like in this scenario here, I could both get rid of the Bolt Shark and still have a grenade primary combo. Or I could keep the Bolt Shark, use the Pheromone Bolt, and use IFG grenades instead. All three of these examples work very cohesively together. Hopefully you kind of getting the gist of what I'm saying here. I am going to give more examples, but I'm going to go through the other classes. This is not a master class or anything. That's why I'm not going into like crazy detail here. I think examples are really just the best thing I can do, so you get the idea of, you know, when you're picking a grenade, start thinking outside the box and looking at everything else you have. And yeah, so I'll just move on to the next example. Let's use the Engineer. Engineer is perfect because often I'm choosing points that are, well, first of all, tested, but it's never just about that weapon doing the most damage. It's usually integrated with my grenade like a build should be, like, you know, everything kind of working together cohesively. You know, if you look at the Fatboy Nuke here, because I'm not choosing the armor breaking or projectile speed, and instead I'm choosing the heat, I'm losing 50% damage. So I've made an error. At least that's what I've been told. But in reality, of course, what I'm actually doing is using my grenade to get the most value out of a single bullet. So instead of a single shot, high damage Fatboy Nuke for a whole bunch of enemies, you can instead repurpose the area of effect to kill even more enemies that weren't in the blast. So firstly, I tested all these variations with the exception of the ammo mods because I need the ammo. But I've tested all of them. I've come to this conclusion because I usually get triple the amount of kills when I do it this way. And that's because my grenade and my deep core mods are working together here. So essentially, with the Fatboy Nuke, you have the potential to take out a crap load of enemies. If a crap load of enemies actually presents itself, if you have that opportunity, that is. You're not always going to have that opportunity. You kind of have to wait for those moments if you want to get a lot of kills in one big shot. But see, what I've noticed from using this weapon for years is that the initial shot will take out most enemies, but that's it. Then you got another group of enemies spawning somewhere else, and you don't have that much ammo. So the way to make one shot go further is I use my lure. I throw a lure first, usually. You can't always do that, but I usually try to do that. I then shoot the lure where all the enemies are, and now all the enemies in the area, anything else that spawns or anything else that's around will just walk into that lure, or into, of course, the damage zone of the nuke. And this is just where testing it came into play. Honestly, I tried all these different variations, and with how this is built exactly like it is now, more enemies died, just simply put. It doesn't even need the fire mod. They just die with the 50% or without the 50%. Either way, even the new enemies walking into the zone. Especially with if I have like if I set up my turrets right there too. Even with the 50% damage loss for setting enemies on fire. And then you have the more damage on average, right? So you're getting even more damage with that mod as well. But anyway, as I said earlier, I have to show examples. I'm sorry guys, I have to show gameplay examples. It's not going to work any other way. I'm still going to do it the usual way for like my masterclass videos and stuff. It's how I started, it's how I'm going to finish. But I am going to do a lot more gameplay clips like this. So yeah, skip ahead if you want, or watch this thing in action and see how a grenade, a simple grenade, can actually alter the build that I'm using and the gun I'm using, the mods I bring, and how I play. DK.
Why are you gay?
Rock and stone in the heart.
All right. So I've been here for
Rock and stone.
I don't know how long. DK joined. But other than that, nobody's joined. Kind of wanted 4 players because that would be a lot more enemies, but I cannot wait any longer for people to join. I'm on public. I think it's just the fact that it's a lethal enemy, parasite, drill dozer, has 5 mission. Man, good thing I have that. Got this going. Alright, I'll come back later for that. It's nice too because the lure kind of holds enemies back a little bit, like that oppressor is back there, not really like up in my grill. I'm not really doing good with my having my turret. Should have my turret out so I can shoot it, and then, but haven't been doing very good with that. But see how like without the lure, you're only really getting like the initial impact. You're not really getting the hell anything else, right? So with the lure, you're dragging them in, and with the fire, yeah, I mean, it's pretty evident. This mission should be way harder. We've had 2 detonators so far, but I don't feel like it's that difficult, you know? I hear them, I hear them, I hear them. There you go. You got massive explosion, and then all of the, you know, parasites and stuff that's around the area are kind of walking into the lure, right? Not everything. Not everything goes through a lure, but a freaking decent amount, that's for sure. Alright, sweet. I think we're ready to do this. I can't believe we only got, we couldn't get 4 people. That really sucks. But, whatever. I mean, hopefully this is somewhat impressive. Like, I don't find this that difficult right now, and it should be, right? And I just find that's because I have a lot of ammo for a really crazy build. Down there's a great place for it. I'm sorry I can't really like show you what's going on because I'm obviously trying to stay alive, but I'll just throw another one down there. They're gonna keep walking into it. And it's just a nice thing to, it's a beautiful thing. It really is. See how they're going down there. And walking into, fire, nuke death. Ooh, hoo, hoo. Yeah, the swarm isn't quite here yet. Oh, I hear that behind me. I gotta do this. Also, I have friendly fire on, by the way, so, like, usually I would be a lot more injured right now than I am. I do run friendly fire on this build, just because. Yeah, run down there. Yeah, just go right down there. Perfect. There we go. That was C Haz 5. Lethal, was it? Lethal enemies, parasites, with lots of ammo. I mean, lots of ammo is the key. So I didn't even hit the impact on everything, but as you can see, they die on their own. Just from standing in it. So all in all, that worked out pretty well for the type of mission it was, except for trying to extract when they started the Rockpox event during extraction, which is just obviously not a good idea, right? But luckily there was a scout there that could zip up and get away. I think my deaths were literally trying to extract.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Other than that, you get the point about how one grenade has altered the actual build I use. And without going into another gameplay clip, another great example of that is the laser platform explodey overclocky thing for the engineer. I actually do have a gameplay video using that. I'll link in the description there. But essentially it's the same thing, right? I rely on the lure to lure enemies into my platforms, and I use the platforms to kill enemies, which again is just another example of how a grenade can be combined. I guess can be more than just a grenade, essentially. And as always, there's so much more I have as examples. I'm just gonna have to get into it on a different topic, in a different video, on another day. So with that, let's switch to the gunner here. This is the class I use kind of grenade combos with the least. I do use it for the sticky grenade and AoE builds usually, not all the time, and I think maybe one other. You could do that, I guess, with the Incendiary Grenade and the Necrothermal Catalyst on the coil gun, where enemies are on fire, and if they die when they're on fire, they explode. And I've done that, but you don't really need it. That's the thing. The coil gun does absolutely fine without having the Incendiary Grenade for extra fire. I mean, you could use Burning Hell or the rockets or something like that as well, but generally I don't really think that way with the gunner. For the gunner, I choose my grenades based on what the primary and secondary builds are lacking. Similar to my engineer's plasma burster example, if I were to have a single target damage build, then I would prefer a grenade that can do some AoE. So maybe with like Lead Storm or a couple rocket launcher builds, maybe even Big Bertha, I would prefer to have a grenade that can cover a large area of effect. So without using a gameplay example, the best scenario I have for this is a Dreadnought single target build for your primary and also your secondary. You would basically need an AoE grenade to defend yourself against large groups of enemies. So if you wanted to use the sticky grenade, I would just switch the secondary to something like the Hellfire coil gun for the waves of enemies, and then you have your primary and grenades for the Dreadnought. It's not exactly what I do, but it is an example. I think the gunner's grenades can wipe out most groups of enemies, but it's always tough with friendly fire preventing a lot of opportunities to throw them. So unlike the rest of the classes, I don't depend on my grenades very much with gunner. If I see the opportunity to use them, or if I know I'm grabbing ammo soon, I'll shield and grenade, because why not? But honestly, if I never use them, I would still be okay because of how strong the rest of my build is. Almost all my gunner builds are the same, with the exception of Carpet Bomber and Bulldog, where I do rely on the sticky grenade quite a bit. Not only for the single target damage that the sticky grenade brings, but also because it fears Praetorians, and so it's much easier to just turn them around and then shoot them. So last but not least, we have the Driller. Personally, I have relied on the Driller's throwing axes for a very long time. Simply just because they're fun to throw, and you get health from them if you have Vampire. So of course mainly on my health build, which is in my Driller Masterclass, so I'm not going to do any gameplay, of course, showing that, having that axe is very helpful. However, most of my loadouts do not actually require the grenade to function. But that doesn't mean you can't make a build like that. Whether it's a bunker build where you're using rippers at the entrance of the bunker, or the Neurotoxin Grenade and your flamethrower just to ignite enemies. Or you could take it a step further and use the goo gun instead, and if you combine that with the EPC gun and the Burning Nightmare mod. So essentially you slow down a group of enemies on the goo, you throw a Neurotoxin Grenade, and then you light the goo and the gas on fire at the same time. So if anything does survive the explosion, it'll be walking on flaming goo. Which makes a pretty good drill dozer build or a salvage operation build. And if you're fortunate enough to be playing with somebody that you're communicating with and they bring a fire rocket or burning hell, then you don't need the EPC anymore to light your goo on fire. Instead, you can bring the Colette wave cooker. I'm just laying goo down, somebody else is lighting it on fire, and my Colette wave cooker just kills everything that's either gooed or on fire or both. I would love to do a gameplay video of that because every time I've done this, the missions are ridiculously easy. But anyway, you get the point. A grenade is more than a grenade to me. It is something that can alter the mods on my primary and secondary weapons and ultimately decide what kind of build that I'm going to bring into the mission. So, generally speaking for the driller, I mostly use the throwing axes and the ripper. Not that there's anything wrong with the other two, it's just, it works well for me. I'm not really bored of it yet to change it up. And like I said earlier, there's something fun about throwing axes for me. Whether it's actually getting you out of a situation by killing a tri-jaw or just throwing them because they're fun to throw. And regarding the rippers, when I did my survival testing and build testing for it, I actually completed an entire Hazard 5 wave, like a swarm, with just the rippers at the entrance of a bunker. I didn't even use my cryo or anything. So they are definitely effective if you know how to use them. But as I've also tested the other grenades, they are too. So I do think with the driller, I probably would focus more on having a solid primary secondary that cohesively work together, like cryo and then Colette Wave Cooker, or sludge and Colette Wave Cooker, or sticky flames and Colette Wave Cooker. They all work very well together. And I'm saying this, of course, because of mods like Temperature Amplifier, Boiler Ray, Contagion Transmitter, and Exothermic Reactor. It has a lot to do with like temperature or freezing targets, targets on fire, which is quite easy for the driller to do. For example, if you freeze a bunch of enemies, you can either do a lot of damage to one big enemy, or you can basically kill all the enemies with this build here. And the same thing works if you were using sticky flames or goo, essentially. So if you do something like that, it definitely frees up the grenades to use whichever grenade you want. So I hope this video gives you some ideas on grenade choices and your overall build choices. Leave a gibberish comment for 500 experience points, and for a limited time you can get triple the experience points if you like this video as well. Bye for now, guys.